Single family rental home advantages for investors. Today we're going to talk about a tried and true investment strategy that for the most disciplined investors that start off early become highly successful, or this will work for just somebody that kind of wants to dabble but kind of not. You can be anywhere in the middle and still make this strategy work. So anyway, we're going to talk about that a little bit today. Before we get started, I want to share a testimonial with you that come in. Jason Walker makes the process. Oh, let me back up. You can find this testimonial over at our website, wyomingdreamteam.com. Anyway, Jason makes the process of buying or selling property simple for all involved. Being able to contact your realtor with a phone call or an email and get what you need is important. Jason is always available to assist in making sure his transactions are covered from the beginning to end. I've never seen an agent that represents their customers and their best interest as well as Jason. He is one of the absolute best at working for the customer and making sure everything runs smoothly for them even after the transaction is closed. This was from a lady named Anise, and thank you, Anise, for providing that feedback. That was super meaningful. For those of you watching, I'll share this with you. I've never sold a piece of real estate to Anise or her family. She works at a title company in Gillette that we frequent, and so she gets to see how all real estate agents work from the backside. And when this testimonial surfaced, it was super meaningful, and it sure touched me a little bit, because title agents and title insurance companies get to see the good and the bad with everything. Because they, one, they're providing title insurance, but two, they're the escrow agents, third-party verifiers of everything, and closing the transactions out, and we're always working in tandem with those folks to get the job done for you, or you should be, at least. And so anyway, you can jump over there and see that testimonial if you want, but I wanted to share that one with you because it's fairly unique in the fashion that, again, I've just never sold her or her family, and well, it doesn't matter. I've never sold her or her family any real estate, and so to see something like this come through and be recognized on a whole different level, that meant a lot. So anyway, back to the topic at hand, single-family rental homes. Let's be clear. I want to define this real quick. Single-family rental homes can be a house, it can be a duplex, a triplex, a fourplex, meaning you can have four housing units under one roof, or three housing units under one roof, or just a single family home, traditional house. And the reason it's important to define that is because when you're out getting mortgages, most people can't pay cash up front when they're getting into the game of real estate. You need to understand mortgage rules, and all mortgages across the board have accepted that 4 units or less can qualify for single family status, and anything more than 4 units, that tips you over into more of a commercial type setting, and those are different loan types. Okay, so anyway, here's some advantages to investors. I want to run through these with you today and kind of get your mind thinking a little bit. And super aggressive people or investors that want to be in the real estate game can utilize this to the nth degree and create a basket of wealth like you've never expected in your lifetime. And really, anybody can do it as long as you can get started, right? Get some traction in the beginning, and then all of a sudden it'll start snowballing on you, and poof, 20 years will go by, and there you go. You got a whole portfolio of rentals. So let's dive into that. First, high loan to value mortgages. Here's what that means. You can buy a single family home with, in our area, we have USDA rural development with a 0% down payment. We have VA, FHA, and conventional loan types that will work for this. Now, we have a first time homebuyer program called WCDA. This will not work for building a portfolio like we're talking about here. So if you're a first time home buyer and you're thinking you're going to get WCDA, first time home buyer status loan, and then use this in your grand plan, will not work. Now you can buy your first home with this, but then you're going to have to refinance as you move through the next steps. So just keep that in mind and be cognitive. You need to talk to your mortgage lender about these things as you plan out your future. But anyway, and VA too, I'm going to throw this out there. VA is going to have some rules that you're going to need to know about in addition to everything else. So again, talk to your mortgage lender about that. Be upfront with them about what you think your grand plan is going to be, and start executing. But anyway, high loan to value mortgages, meaning this: you could, with FHA, you can have a 3.5% down payment. The bank is going to finance the other 96.5% for you. Same with conventional. You can do a minimum of 5% down payment. The bank will finance 95% of the rest of the value of the property. So easy numbers. You could go buy a $100,000 property home, right? The bank's going to lend you $95,000. You're into it for $5,000. Or if you do FHA, you're into it for $3,500. The bank will loan you $97,500. These are excluding closing costs, all right? There's going to be some closing fees associated with all this, but for the sake of this conversation, we're just specifically going to talk about the loans. Rural development, 0 down payment, right? You could really start your first project, your first property, with a 0 down payment. The bank will finance 100% of it. And you got to qualify for these terms, right? So that's what that means, the high loan to value mortgages. Now, if you were to step out into the commercial realm and the heavy investor realm of, at a regular apartment complex, you're going to be at a minimum 20% down payment if you're going to get financing. That's where it starts. So big investors, they start at 20% down payment. Maybe they're going to do 25, 30, or 40. Just kind of depends on what they expect for cash flow and net income every month or every year. For you as a homeowner getting started, you can go for these high loan to value mortgages just like any other homeowner and start plugging and playing. Next, the fixed interest rates. This is key. So on any of these loan types I just mentioned, the interest rate is going to be fixed. It will not change. It's not variable. It's not going to move up and down with the market. This is super important for you because then your payment. Your payment every month, every year. The only thing that's going to change is taxes. Taxes can change and insurance can change on you. Other than that, principal and interest is going to stay the same. And that makes for easy calculations looking into the future, right? Heavy investors, when you get into apartment complexes or commercial buildings, they're not so lucky. Like, they might only get a fixed term for 5 years or 10 years, and then after that it could change. So you see a lot of those, and a lot of investors having to, they'll get a loan amortized for 20, but they know in 10 years or less they got to change that or get it paid off, or there's going to be a change mid-stroke. Whereas buying single family homes, it's fixed. The only reason it wouldn't be fixed is if you refinance it. And the only reason you're going to refinance is to get a lower interest rate, all of which you've tied the property up. Likely appreciation is going to kick in for you, so the property is going to be worth more. You refinance, now all of a sudden your net income monthly and yearly is going to be that much higher. So super huge advantage there. Long terms on those loans. So if you're going to get a loan, you can get a mortgage for 10, 15, 20, 25, or 30 years. But let's face it, if you're going to start this strategy and become an investor, you're likely going to utilize the 25 or 30 year option, because that will lower your monthly obligation of payments back to the bank, on your loan. 15 year, 15 and 30 year always get compared out there in the world, right? On a 15 year, you can pay down the principal amount sooner and be debt free sooner. And on a 30 year, it's going to take twice as long and that much extra money. But the payment amount every month is going to be, on a 15 year, your obligation for your monthly payment is higher than the 30 year. So if you're going to be an investor, you got to kind of weigh this and make some judgment calls on what you're comfortable with. We see a good lot of people taking the 30-year option, getting the minimum amount that they have to pay back every month. And if they get some windfalls, they can make extra payments to that loan and suppress the loan amount down that much quicker. But if the windfalls don't come, or some unforeseen circumstance surfaces, and you got to put money back into the property, right? Because that's going to happen. Nothing ever runs for free forever. You're going to have to save up money to invest back into your property. That's where that 30-year term becomes an advantage. Now, in comparison, big investors that buy big units, the banks usually will only go up to 20 years. Sometimes they'll get a 25, but usually the max that a bank is willing to go with a heavy investor is going to be 20 years, and a lot of times 15. There's the occasional case of 25. So they're forced into, big time professional investors are forced into just, again, a more aggressive turnover on those loans. I just mentioned this. Real estate's always appreciating. We've seen it just slowly keeps going up. Like they don't make more land anymore, right? Real estate's always going to be a safe investment for you, and in the long game, short term, you can see markets go like this, right? And I can demonstrate that all day long. I've been selling real estate now since 2010. And up to this date, I've seen 3 downturns. Markets go up and down, okay, on the short term. But the long-term play, and that's kind of the gist of this conversation today, on the long-term play, it's a steady climb, okay? So we're working with an appreciating asset, and that's where you start thinking about retirement, okay? These are retirement conversations. What's that appreciating asset? What's that possibly going to look like for you in 10 years, 20 years, maybe 30 years, depending on how you're kind of staging up your long play. Next, income tax benefits. Okay, so we're going to break this. You're going to have a good accountant on board, okay? In the short term, when I say we're going to invest in single family rental homes in the short term and utilize these home mortgages, you're going to live in the property at least 24 months, okay? Month 25, you can go buy the next one and put, all of a sudden this one goes into your investment portfolio. So you buy your first one, live in it 25 months, set it in your investment portfolio, go buy the next house. The next property. The reason that's important is because in these mortgages, there's going to be rules in there that to qualify for these home mortgages, you have to live in them for at least 2 years. Okay, easy peasy. Usually that's a good seasoning period to get familiar with it. Every property has its own personality. Okay, I'm just going to throw that out there. Every property has its own personality. It's got certain nuances. We're not buying brand new construction typically, so you got to learn, what's been the past problems, how does it work. Yeah, just little nickel and dime stuff that you got to kind of learn, and then work with. And maybe you're going to improve on it while you're living there, right? Because you're on site every day, you can make improvements and then get it in better conditions so that when you move on to the next property, you're leaving this one in good shape, and it's going to be that much easier to manage. So anyway, on the short term, there's certain income tax benefits that you're going to have, right? And then when you move out and it turns into a full income producing property or investment, then it's going to shift over into different brackets on your income tax. You need to get with your income tax advisor and sort this out and what it means to you. My point is here, you're going to have some tax benefits that most homeowners don't get to experience. And if you're never a homeowner or you're a full-time tenant, zero chance this is ever going to benefit them on their income taxes. And when I say benefit, meaning bring you down in a tax bracket, bring, your yearly obligation to the U.S. government is going to be suppressed because you're providing housing to others, right? So that's the trade-off. Like, you provide housing to others, you improve your real estate, you become a contributing citizen of your community, basically. You're going to get some tax breaks. That's how that works, in general terms speaking. So get with your tax person, iron all this out, because you'll be surprised just what tax benefits you have. And some of this is going to get staged out. So as I mentioned before, when you're living there, that's one way, or one stage. And then after you move out and it turns into a full investment, you're going to have deductions that are on the year, maybe every 5 years, maybe every 10, maybe even up to 26.5 years. Okay? Do the math on that. You could have deductions that will last you 26.5 years. Go learn about it with your tax accountant. You'll be pleasantly surprised. And last, reasonable control. Okay? This one, I feel like personally, maybe investors don't put a lot of oomph into this, but there's some validity. Reasonable control meaning you live in it for a couple of years, you learn the nuances, you learn the property's personality, right? Now you have a full understanding of what it's going to take to manage this property. As you have people moving in and out, you got tenants, let's face it, you're always going to have rollover at some point. Tenants are going to come and go. There's a reason they're tenants, right? There's a reason they're renters. And on a single family home, or a duplex, or a triplex, or even a fourplex, right? Like, that's not so much to manage for you versus buying a multi-unit apartment complex where you have 20 or 30 units all in one shot. Like that, the level of management is just so much different. As just a getting started investor, or somebody that doesn't want to be a major pro, you just kind of want to be here in the minor leagues, the reasonable control will as you get into the process, you will learn and respect what I'm trying to tell you here, that having reasonable control over your properties is well worth the benefit. Now, Earlier I said think about this in a long play. I just laid out several advantages here for folks that want to be investors, and I'm saying minor leagues. Like if you want to step, you can start here, right, and then eventually go to the major leagues, or you can stay here and create a path to retirement like you've never ever expected you could do before. And here's how that kind of shapes up. So you go buy a property, go buy a house, right? And keep in mind, I'm talking about a house in town, duplex, threeplex, fourplex, or maybe you want to focus on country properties. We live in Wyoming, right? Maybe you want to have country properties, ranchettes, small acreage properties. You can do the same thing here, right? Because you're getting the same loans. We can get the same loans on those homes up to 40 acres plus or minus. Maybe you want to focus out in the country, and that's going to be your niche. But anyway, you buy the property, you live in it for at a minimum 2 years. At 25 months, you're free and clear to move on to the next property. Now here's the catch. You have to be able to prove to the bank debt to income ratios in the beginning if you don't have experience managing properties. So that's the first catch that you'll experience, and you need to be aware of it up front. Stepping from property 1 to property 2, you've got to be able to demonstrate that you can hold both properties and your debt to income ratios are in check. Otherwise, you will not get past the first lap of this marathon. Okay. And I'm putting some oomph into that because that catches more people than anything else in this process, is they don't have enough debt to income ratio to get from property 1 to property 2. They don't have enough income to support the debt to income ratios to get from property 1 to property 2 with no experience. Okay. So that first one that you purchase, or the second one, doesn't matter, you can flip-flop them. One of those is going to have to be a little cheaper so that it fits the mold in the beginning. Okay. Now I'm just going to stop right here and make a recommendation that your first property that you buy should probably be a duplex or a triplex or fourplex for a couple reasons that we're just discussing here. One is when you do that, you get those tenants in the other units helping you pay the mortgage for the first couple years, kind of jump starting this program for you, right? And then they're helping make the mortgage payment as you go. But more importantly is you will be accumulating rental history management of your own right away. Now this will become important when you're moving on to the next property number 2 especially, and then it gets less important thereafter. But when you jump from property 1 to property 2, it becomes super important to have that history in your back pocket, because to reduce the debt obligation on your debt to income ratio when you're moving from property 1 to property 2, in order for lenders to include the income, you have to be able to suppress that debt to income ratio. You have to prove that you have managed or have experience managing properties for at least 2 years. So for these 2 reasons, I would suggest that at least your first one be a plex of some kind. Get the rental history, jumpstart this process, get another tenant, get somebody else helping pay that mortgage. And the third reason being this, like if you just buy your first one as a single family home, you're paying the mortgage every month. You don't have any passive income coming in to help subsidize basically that mortgage payment. So your first one, if it's the single family home, you're just not getting that passive income in, and that will become important so much more important later. But the big thing is getting that rental history underneath your belt and getting that in your pocket to demonstrate that to your lenders later. And like honestly, like your first one, you really want to get that property management history anyway to see if you're cut out for this. Like there's going to be those that you love this idea. You want to do this idea. You want to execute it. But then you learn as a property manager, man, I'm not cut out for this. I'm a proponent for this. You should learn it on your first property, not the second or third one that you've bought. You should learn it on your first one. And you get to learn, how to interact with tenants, what the loopholes are, what the hacks are, what the catches, like you gain so much experience in that first couple of years on your own. Now you're going to have somebody on your side like us that we're in touch with property managers. We have a property manager. We're going to have those people in place to assist you, but you really need to know how all this works in the background to be a better investor in the future. So for all three of these reasons, I would suggest that you start out with a Plex first and then move into the single family homes if that's the route that you end up choosing to go, or doing a mix. You can have the mix too, but at least do that, and that'll project you so much further into this investment strategy. It's not even funny. Net worth balance when you get later in life. You could literally do this every 2 years. So doing the math, in 25 years, you could have accumulated 20 properties. Okay? Or more, maybe 21 or 22. Just depends on how things kind of flow for you, and life happens, right? Like sometimes I was going to get my next property bought at month 25, but something happened, so you got delayed 6 months, right? Those things are going to happen. So 10 properties, 25 years, that's a soft ballpark. Now here's where some magic comes with that. Fannie Mae, who is one of the buyers, institutional buyers for conventional loans, and they back up conventional loans. Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, Ginnie Mae, Ginnie Mac. But anyway, there's some rules out there with those type of institutions that say you can't have more than 10 homes at any given point in time with a loan against them with the residential loan type. Well, that's okay. I spend 2 years in each property or more, get it in a condition that I can manage back to reasonable control. I learn the ebbs and flows of this property and its personality type, and then I move on to the next property. Well, in 20 years, I'm going to max out on my loans. That's okay. Now you might catch a windfall and appreciation levels go up, and you can refinance one or two of those, pay off a couple of those, because you've had 20 years of suppressing that mortgage down. You only got 10 years left on the mortgage. You may be able to refinance one or two of those houses or properties, pay off a couple others, and then you can start the cycle over again, right? Like, it's a beautiful system. So don't get caught up in I can only have 10 loans out there, and there's rules out there with these mortgages that say I can only have 10 loans. So what? Grow into it. Step up as you go. Most of us, I don't know of a lot of people that start with, a bunch of rentals given to them. You got to kind of work at it. I don't know of a lot of people that's had a ton of real estate given to them, so you got to kind of work at it. So the stair-step method works, right? And I can take anybody that wants to do this, and I can get them from A to Z, no problem. Okay, it's the mental. You got to get set mentally, and you got to be in it for the long play. Now that's getting extreme. Maybe your goal is only to have 2 or 3. That's okay. That fits in this mold, right? Like, you can play it out in 20 years. Maybe I want just 2 or 3 rental properties. Okay. They don't have to be in the same town. You can, or the same state, right? We can, maybe you got goals of, being in Wyoming and being somewhere else, and you can flip flop back and forth. We can do that too, no problem. Um, I've run into fellas, or people, I shouldn't say just fellas, but men and women that work, and they know based on their job they're going to only be here for 2 or 3 years, and then they're going to work up the corporate ladder, and they're going to go there for 2 or 3 years. Well, they could leave a property behind, put a property manager in place, take advantage of these loan types, build a portfolio, and when they retire, they've all of a sudden got the retirement income coming in from their job and the passive income from real estate. So all kinds, like, this isn't black and white for everybody, okay? Nobody's picture ever looks the same. That's why we got to sit down, goal set, build your team, your income tax professional, your financial people, your lender, me as your realtor. This is team building. This is why in the beginning or early in the stages, right, you might find somebody you thought was knowledgeable and going to be your team member, and you got to fire them and bring somebody new in. But you're going to learn these things within the first 5 to 7 years, right? But you got to get it built early, or somebody retires or gets sick and dies. Like, let's face it, that happens. Or gets in a car wreck. That's always a horrific event, but life happens. Your team members may change, but you need to be building that team and knowing who that team's going to be and how they're going to benefit you, fit your goals and objectives, and be ready for the long play. That's all part of it. And then here's the other fun part. There's more. I said stair step up into this, make it a 20, 25-year plan. Then you could stair step back out. Okay? Now here's what I mean by this. The IRS code says if you live in your home for at least at a minimum 2 years and you sell it, you don't have to pay capital gains. It's a great benefit that all of us have as United States citizens, right? We live in our house for at least 2 years. If we make any money, make any profit on that, that profit is a non-taxable event. Okay? It's super beautiful. Like, it's where some wealth is made for the average middle class, the lower class. In the long play, that's where they realize some real life wealth. Okay? But if it's a rental, then you're going to be subject to capital gains. If you haven't lived in it for 2 years or more, then it's going to be subject to capital gains. Let that settle for a second. When you go to the closing table, when you sell a property, sell a house, sell a duplex, fourplex, whatever, one of the properties that the title agent's going to ask you is, have you lived in your home for the last 2 of the last 5 years? It's a standardized question. I've seen it 1,000 times. Have you lived in that property for the last 2 of the 5 years? Yes or no? It's a true or false answer. If the answer is true, yes, I have lived in that property for the last 2 of the 5 years, you are excluded from capital gains taxation. If you have not, there will be a capital gains tax that you have to pay based on the profit, the net profit. Okay, now this is where you're talking to your tax accountant and your financial planner kind of comes into play. It's your net profit, not the gross. So you may have bought it for $100,000, put in $50,000 worth of improvements, and you have closing costs of $20,000, and you sell it for $200,000. You have a $30,000 net. So it's the $30,000 that you're worried about paying capital gains taxes on, not the full $200,000. Okay. But anyway, back to my point here is, if you strategically play this out, you could stair step up into your properties for 15, 20, 25 years and then do a slow play out. Okay? I'm near 60 years old, and I'm just throwing this out there as an example. I'm near 60 years old. By the time I'm 80, I don't want to own any more of these rentals, and I want to be totally cashed out, money in the bank, and maybe I'm planning on going to assisted living, maybe not. That's a whole different conversation, but I'm looking at a 20-year play here. I'm near 60. At near 80, if I'm still alive, I do not want these rentals in my portfolio anymore. I'm not going to do management. I'm not going to have the stress and the concern. I'm not taking the phone calls. I am out of the game. Okay? To avoid the taxation, sell the one that you're living in, move back into a different one that you want to sell. Live there for 2 years. Sell that one. Move back into a different one. Live there for at least 2 years, 25 months, right? Sell that one. Stair step back down. So to build your little empire, you stair stepped into it. Your exit strategy is just the same, but you're going back down the stairs. It's a beautiful system. Anybody can do this, right? Like, you get started when you're 25 years old, 20, 18, I don't care. Stair step into it, and about midway through, you're going to be like, okay, my empire's enough. Now I'm going to worry about going back down, because I don't want. Now, you can tax defer, right? Like, if you don't want to pay capital gains, there's the whole tax deferment conversation on a 1031 exchange. I get it. I'm not talking to heavy hitter investors here. I'm talking to the average person that wants to be in the minor leagues, that builds a nest egg and protects that nest egg to the maximum, and then has something to retire on, has a net worth that they never dreamed about, can pass on whatever they don't use to the next generation, and be, leave a family legacy to some degree. So you keep stair stepping down out of these properties, and say, for example, like we've been talking, it takes 20 years to step in, or 25 years to step into all of them. Now all of a sudden you got your midpoint. You use the same time frame or more to step out, because to sell, once you commit to selling, it could take a month or 5 months to sell your property, depending on the goals and objectives of each sale, right? And the ebbs and flows of the real estate market at that given point in time. You may have if it took 20 years to get in, it may take 25 years to get out. So you got to kind of weigh that. But here's where the math gets fun on that. Say, for example, and I'm just going to put some soft figures to all this, because every example is going to produce a different realization. But say you buy each property for $200,000, okay, and you did 10 of them, okay. We did this over the course of 20 to 25 years, and then we factor in just the appreciation, back to real estate being an appreciating asset. We're going to put a soft number of 3% per year was the growth of appreciation on that property, okay. And that's a soft number. Like, historically, the numbers are higher, right? But I'm not trying to oversell this here. So if we just calculate 3% per year is the growth projection at for the term of how long you own this. And I'm saying only own this for 20 years, right? Like, at 20 years now, we start the exit strategy. So some of these properties you're going to own for more, which the realization is going to be greater. But hard and fast numbers, $200,000 each, 10 properties, 3% per year appreciation. At the end of 20 years, each one of those properties is going to be worth $361,000, plus or minus, right? That's $161,000 net appreciation per property. That's $1.6 million that you wouldn't have had if you didn't play this type of investing program. This does not include the tax benefits. This does not include the net income that you may have realized through the years, and it doesn't include what your opportunity cost would have been had you been a renter yourself. Like, we get into dissecting all that, then all of a sudden the realization of growing your net worth just becomes so much greater. But for the sake of this video today, I'm keeping it super simple, to the basics. I don't want to oversell it. These are some realistic numbers that we can plan for you in your worth, your net worth, looking into the future, right? Now obviously there's going to be some other circumstances that play into this that is probably going to grow this even more, but you're growing it with other people's money, right? Like, it was your tenants paying for all of this. It was your tenants paying down the loan, right? So, and I'm talking about net appreciation. So now let's step back. You sell this out, let's just say that I'm right, $360,000. You've been paying down the loan for 20 years. You know, you're probably only going to owe, let's just call it $50,000 at that point on your $200,000 loan. So your take home is going to be roughly $300,000 per property. Well, 300,000 times 10, that's $3 million. Talk to me about an investment that you can make that will produce that for you at the end of your life, or where you want to be in retirement, how you want to live your retired years, how do you want to live the end of your years. You know, this is how people get to go on permanent vacation after the age of 50. I've seen it done. Like, it's doable. But you have to be up here, you have to be ready, and you have to play it for the long play. This is not a short-term play. And if you're married, you got a family, your family has to be dedicated to all this too, right? Like, it's not just you. Now, we see some of this happening with flippers, right? They'll go buy a house, remodel it, live in it for 2 years, and sell it because they're avoiding the whole capital gains deal. Where they come short is they could have retained ownership for however many years, we're calling it 20 in this example, realized the income from the tenants, and then sold it with the net appreciation of real estate that we get to realize in the United States, and really make bank. That, like, I just can't express how you could change the trajectory of your life later on in time and become that much more comfortable. Now, yeah, you're gonna still work a job, and you know, we all got careers, and you know, I'm not talking to the affluent here. I'm talking to the blue collar, the first time home buyer that has a dream. You know, that's what this video is intended for. So anyway, I hope that kind of sheds some light, gives you some hope, gives you some direction. I said it earlier, you don't have to go this extreme. Like, this is from starting at zero and putting the gas pedal down and, you know, getting to the minor leagues and playing a 20-year play. You could land somewhere in the middle. Maybe you only want one or two. Um, Everybody's tastes are a little different. Everybody's expectations are a little different. I get it. But you can, depending on where you want to land, you can apply the same philosophies here and really do yourself good in the investing category of your life. Okay. Um, I think I'm just going to wrap up by saying this today. In this example, I've talked to you about just buying 10 properties over the course of 20 years, basically. So, generically speaking, that would be our goal setting in this example. So let's put that kind of in perspective. Uh, Going back to my recommendation, your first one, if you bought just a duplex, you lived in one side, you rented out the other side, that's 2 doors. Um, and then you just did single family homes, traditional houses thereafter. That would give you a total of 1 duplex, 8 traditional homes that you're renting out over the course of 20 years. That's where you end up at the end of 20 years. And then you keep one for yourself. It's a total of 11 doors. And 10 of those are passive income, right? So you got 10 of those that pay you an income every month or pay you rent, right? And then you live in the other one yourself. Or you could flip it and go to the extreme. And the extreme would be this. You bought all fourplexes. You got 10 of them, fourplexes. That's 40 doors total. But you're going to live in one, right? Because you're always living in one as you get the new mortgage. It gives you 39 doors that are paying rent, passive income. I bet for a good lot of you that are watching this, I bet that you never thought you could build an empire like that over the course of 20 years. And let's just put the challenge out there. Like especially if you're less than, if you're still, I'm not going to put an age on this, but you're still in the part of your life where you're ambitious enough to apply this concept. Let's get it going. Let's apply it. I don't think there's any age too young or too old to get started with this. Obviously, there's too old at some point because we all expire and our days, every day we live is another day closer to the end of our time here on earth. But my challenge is, like, I don't think you should trap yourself inside the box. You need to be outside and thinking about this. And that leads me into my last point here. If you didn't want to sell, like I talked to you about the stair stepping in and then stair stepping back out, maybe you didn't want to do the stair step back out, and this is one about you building wealth for yourself and getting that passive income and letting other people pay for your lifestyle and other people pay for your bills as you go. That's what passive income is all about. But more importantly, at the end, you're not going to sell. Maybe you put all of this into a trust that you're going to pass on to the next generation and really create that generational wealth. Be a legacy. Pass it on to your heirs or somebody else that can do some good with what you've started, right? So that's the last part of this. Like, you don't have to sell. You don't have to do the stair step back down. Maybe all of this is to ensure that your children are taken care of, or some other family members are taken care of, or you put it into a trust, and that trust takes care of some nonprofits that you're super passionate about. Like, building your estate trust can take several different paths, right? And again, that's for a whole nother conversation, but you could put this all together, and even once you're passed, it could continue on to be an asset for somebody else or for something else, right? I think that's it for today. Um, I hope you understand that single family rental homes provide advantages to investors that a good, professional investors don't get to experience, right? Like this is designed for the average person in America. Um, so I hope you understand that. I hope that I kind of portrayed a little bit that there's an ease of management here. We're not talking about hiring a property manager or an asset manager to manage a 60 unit apartment complex. We're talking about just taking care of your little piece of paradise, whether it's one house or duplex or whatever, fourplex. There's some ease of management built into this so that you're not bogged down in oh, I got to stress myself out and take care of all these properties and da 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 da. You can put in professionals. You can plug and play here a little bit with different professionals and still make this work with the property managers or the asset managers. And then lastly and most importantly, I hope that I portrayed enough that you understand the leverage, the built-in leverage that you have here, and some advantages that you could uh, take advantage of as you go through this process. So anyway, if you got any questions, want to talk about it more, leave some comments down below, call, text. I would love to sit down if you want to start traveling down this avenue. I'd love to sit down with you and start creating that plan. Maybe some friends or family. This isn't designed for everybody, right? Like, let's just get that out there too. This strategy is not for everybody, but for those that want to do it, it's very, very fruitful. Okay. So maybe it's not for you, but maybe you got friends or family that would like to entertain this and get going on it. I'd love to sit down with them. So anyway, thanks for being a subscriber, and catch you on the next video. Talk to you later.